The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Forum for Nonprofits, presented as a public service by the Beasley Broadcast Group, hosted by a representative of the Spirit of Giving Network. To volunteer for the Spirit of Giving Network, call 561-385-0144. Now, here's today's show.
Welcome, nonprofit community. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are going to really be excited to hear from, I have two wonderful guests from the Unicorn Children's Foundation. I had the privilege of attending their snack meeting last week, and I was so impressed. I really begged them to come, and they were very willing and wanting to share the information of the work that they're doing in our community. We have today with us Sharon Alexander. She's the executive director of Unicorn Children's Foundation. And also we have Dr. Ann Faraone, who's an advisor to the special needs population with the Unicorn. So without any further ado, I really, again, thank you so much for coming. And Sharon, if you would go ahead and tell us more about the organization and what you're doing.
So, yes, thank you again for having us today. Unicorn Children's Foundation is a 21-year-old organization. We were founded back in 1994 when our founder, who was a medical doctor and had an MBA and had a family with considerable resources, had some concerns about his son's development. At that time, Sammy was 2.5 and wasn't speaking. And despite all of the resources that Mark had available to him, it took him about 1.5 years to get services and the right diagnosis for his son. And that was a considerable amount of therapy lost and potential that was not tapped. So in order to make sure that other families who may not have such significant resources didn't go through what he did, he created the foundation really to provide hope to families, identifying what the most effective interventions are and course of action. So over the last 5 years, our foundation has really evolved into being more of an incubator of programs that will support the needs of individuals with special needs across their lifespan. You know, so much of our focus is on the early identification and early intervention, but these individuals, while they are capable and can be productive members of society, still need some supports and systems in place. So this past year, Unicorn Children's Foundation spearheaded a community needs assessment in Palm Beach County, and we had several funders who jumped on board to really make sure this was an assessment by the community for the community. We conducted focus groups, surveys, interviews. We monthly convened over 80 organizations. And during that period of time, we had 270 representatives from those agencies who participated in the process to really identify what the unmet needs are, where the gaps and the barriers for services are, so that as a community, we can come together and figure out how best to fill these gaps and allocate our resources accordingly to make sure that every individual, despite their diagnosis or their unique challenges, has an opportunity to be part of the community.
And how did you come up with the idea in the first place in Palm Beach County? Because that's a pilot program that you started. It is.
10 years ago, Broward County did something very similar, where they really wanted to see what the landscapes of services were. You know, we had the Dan Marino Center that opened up back in the 90s, and many families started moving to that community because there were resources available, but there was not an integrated system created. So they hired the same group that we hired to conduct an assessment and figured out how the community could come together to better fill the needs of individuals with special needs, as well as their families, but also the service providers who are out trying to help them meet the needs. So we met with this group. We took what they did in Broward County, made some modifications because obviously geographically Palm Beach is very different from Broward.
Just size-wise.
Size-wise, right? Demographically.
Yeah.
So we took what their model and modified it. We expanded on it to actually survey individuals who had special needs, because so often we underestimate their ability to have an opinion about what it is they feel they need. And those are really the only opinions that matter. So we've included their voices to really come up with a roadmap on where the county needs to go. We've been fortunate, again, having these multiple agencies coming together and leaving their egos at the door, saying, it's not about me, it's about the community that we're trying to serve. And going forward, really creating that integrated and comprehensive system of care for these individuals.
And in these meetings, I can imagine, did you find that many agencies didn't even know each other existed at the time when you brought them all together? Was it and you said leaving the ego at the door, which I love that. That was very important. But I mean, did you find like, oh, I didn't know you were in the community, or, and it sounds like everybody worked pretty strongly together because of this critical special needs community.
Correct. So from day one, what we kept hearing is, well, there are resources here or there are resources there, but families aren't able to easily connect to them. Or there are agencies who've been in this community providing services for 20 years and didn't know their neighbors were providing services to the same population. So through these conversations, we actually were able to create several instances where organizations came together and collaborated or coordinated services. I know Palm Beach School for Autism is one that they met the Palm Beach Habilitation Center, and the Palm Beach Habilitation Center decided to jump in and help them out or identifying and securing funding for their program. So those little stories of us coming together really start from knowing who our neighbors are and making sure that instead of operating in our silos, we're really working together and blending together to keeping our target population in mind.
Well, it's about time, right, that
Yes.
we did this, because what would you say is the percentage of special needs
So in the
children in our
assessment, they've identified that 12% of residents in Palm Beach County have some type of special need or disability.
And what does that look like? And what is a special need child? Or because there's so many, we hear like autism, but it's on the spectrum, different language about special needs.
There are so many different aspects of what special needs looks like in Palm Beach County. And what I love about this project, it's really all ages, not just looking at the school age child, because that's what a lot of programs kind of focus on. And having been a principal of a school that had many children with different kinds of disabilities, it really opened my eyes to what was out there and what wasn't out there. What Sharon was saying before about the networking, every meeting was started with people having a chance to kind of mingle and talk, and that came out terrifically. I think we can't even characterize it. I would even say services for the blind or services for emotionally disabled. Mental health issues comes up quite a lot. So autism, of course, gets a lot of notoriety because there's been so much being discussed about it, but that's not the only disability. And the early identification also has had a lot of play, and how critical that is, that the sooner the children get services and identified exactly what's going on for them, there are some kids who could then enter kindergarten really ready and diagnose and treat what's going on. Whereas if the longer it's let go, then we really are seeing some gaps, and then it's very hard to do catch up once the children are in school. So the needs are multiple, and many children have more than one issue going on for them. So this is a womb to tomb project. That's what I like to call it.
Womb to tomb.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, because I mean, even like we were talking earlier, when they're 22 years old and they get out of your program, then what?
And they're aging out, right?
And they're aging out. There isn't a program per se for that young adult to have what to do from that program, because you're supporting them up till then, and then what? So.
Although I have to say, one of the strengths of Palm Beach County is really the spirit of innovation and collaboration, and that was identified and highlighted in our by our research team. I know FAU on their Jupiter campus has a new Institute for Community Inclusion. So rather than taking only students into college who are degree seeking, let's utilize those resources. I mean, a college campus is a great community. It's a small micro community. You know, you've got dorms on the campus that may not be filled to capacity. Can we not create non-degree seeking opportunities for students with special needs to actually go on campus, to visit the community center, have lunch, maybe take some courses that are more focused on functional life skills rather than your traditional academics. 3 years ago, one of the unmet needs that Unicorn Children's Foundation identified was a program for adolescents and young adults that was really going to prepare them for life. So we opened the Unicorn Village Academy. Again, we incubate the programs. It's a completely separate entity. We came up with the funding. We came up with the business plan. We made it happen, and now it's up and running on its own. But the focus of the academy was really to help students acquire functional life skills or functional academics. Does it matter if they can do algebra and geometry if they can't make change at the corner grocery store when they're trying to purchase something? So we focus on the functional academics. We focus on the life skills. You know, a lot of individuals lose their jobs not because they're not capable and qualified, but because they don't have those interpersonal skills or the hygiene skills that so many of us take for granted. So developing those, but also getting these students out into the community in different career type aspects, whether it's Trader Joe's or Sports Authority or Walgreens. They've all been great partners. I think most importantly is creating that perception shift in the community, because so often when we think of special needs, we think of the movies we see where individuals are in institutions and in straitjackets, and that's not the reality. These kids or these individuals all have their own unique capabilities and strengths, and we need to make sure that the community is not alarmed and thinking, you know, that these are some deranged people who are being let loose into the community. These are individuals who bring amazing strengths and gifts, but we need to start cultivating those at an earlier point in their life and helping them identify the tracks to being engaged in the community that are going to meet their needs.
What age what age are they when they enter the academy?
So the academy starts, we look at age 14 to 22. 22, again, as you mentioned, that's the age out. And once they're 22, there's really not a lot out there, which is one of the gaps that we're hoping to fill, whether it's employment or whether it's, you know, social recreational opportunities in the community. So the academy is 14 to 22, but there are other programs across the age ranges, you know, from birth to 3. Early Steps provides early identification and early intervention services. The school system has done a tremendous job in terms of taking the students from the time they're 3 up until they're 22. So there are a lot of programs out there. It's just making sure that we've got that one-stop virtual hub where parents can go to kind of filter them to identify where their needs are.
We don't have that now, right?
Well,
you're working on it.
We're working on that. You know, a few years ago, we recognized a need to really sort of hold the hands of families who were in these crises where their child was either just diagnosed or maybe they were in a transition phase that was creating a lot of havoc. So Unicorn Children's Foundation actually did 2 years of funding for the 211 Special Needs Hotline. Creating that, again, was another model program in Broward County that was brought up to Palm Beach County. So there is somebody, if a parent has questions or concerns, or even if their child doesn't have a diagnosis, but their child's not talking or they're concerned they're not developing adequately, they can just dial 211 and be connected to somebody with expertise in special needs who can help them navigate this really complex system. It's a great program. The problem is getting the families to know that it's available.
We need to put it on the buses, right?
Well, actually, Children's Services Councils did big billboards on I-95 recently, so we're hoping that type of awareness will continue. In addition, one of our priorities for this upcoming year as part of our Special Needs Advisory Coalition is creating that virtual hub, because, you know, whether you have internet at home or a computer at home, everybody has a smartphone. If we look at this generation, people are walking around with that. So we are creating a virtual hub that will be accessible on smartphones or the computers at the libraries. And if you go there now, you won't see anything. But it's specialneedspbc.info, which will be a repository of all of the available resources in the community, as well as a calendar of events and different trainings that might be available. There's a wealth of resources in this community. It's just identifying them. And so we're really hoping to filter it, make it easier for families as well as professionals to figure out what's going on.
That's fantastic. We're just going to take a quick break, and we're going to hear more about the hub and everything else. It's such an exciting informational piece. Thank you. We'll be right back.
The following message is brought to you by the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Most professionals you hire are licensed by the state of Florida, including contractors, veterinarians, auctioneers, and talent agents.
If you hire an individual or a company that's not licensed by the state, you put yourself and your family at risk.
So get the job done right. Always verify the license of the people and companies you hire at the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation's website, myfloridalicense.com.
Looking for ways to reduce your home's energy use? Propane tankless water heaters heat water instantly whenever it's needed, eliminating wasted energy. And propane is clean burning and efficient, which is better for the environment. Learn more about energy-saving tankless water heaters at propanefl.com. Propane gas. Exceptional living from the exceptional energy.
A message from the Florida Propane Gas Safety, Education, and Research Council, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Thank you, Sharon and Ann, for joining us today. We're talking with the Unicorn Children's Foundation, and I'd like to know more, Ann, if you want to fill us in about how you got started with your role as advisor and what kind of committees, subcommittees, interests that we need to know about as the community.
Well, we're just moving into what we're calling phase 2, but phase 1 was a whole year of community conversations that were convened by Unicorn and Sharon Alexander, and Betsy Cassabaum from the Center for Strategic Philanthropy and Civic Engagement was facilitating. So I had been attending those meetings, and they were so kind of inspiring because people were coming to the table from all different walks of life around the special needs identification of what could be done to enhance the resources and also get the word out and raise awareness of what already existed in Palm Beach County. So now that that culminated in December with a community conversation where the gap analysis and the recommendations from the experts in the field was shared with the community. And then phase 2 now, we had our first large community convening last week. So kind of recapped what was going on in terms of the conversation, and that led us to key areas that we want to focus on. So the subcommittees that are now forming will be education, employment, social, recreational,
health access,
transportation. So I guess that we probably could have guessed that those would have been the key areas, because if you're a family of a child with special needs or you're an adult with special needs, those are the key areas of concern. So that bubbled up, I think, expectedly for us.
Actually, I think even moving beyond just families with special needs, if you want to say to somebody, what does somebody need to be a meaningful, engaged employee, regardless of disability? Those are the key areas. And so it was interesting to see that those key areas, transition across disabilities, across genders, across races. So it's really on how do we really integrate and incorporate everybody in the community to the best of their abilities.
So moving into this phase now, the subcommittees, voluntarily, people chose areas of their expertise or areas of their interest. So we'll be forming those groups to continue the conversation, but really drilling down even more. The ultimate goal with the virtual hub and expanding the special needs hotline and getting the resources that are out there easier to get information to the families that need it or the people who need it. So we know for a fact that there are still, even though we've had hundreds of different organizations at the table, that there's probably still people out there. It's a very exhausting day for the people who work in community agencies. We're rich in resources in Palm Beach County, but there still are some gaps in terms of what communities they serve, what ages they serve. And that's what we'll be really working on. And it's such a pleasure to have parents at the table as well, and the colleges and universities in the area at the table as well, because they're training the people who will then become the providers to know what these needs are. And we are seeing some possible positions in the field of medical care and healthcare access. We know that there are going to be plenty of jobs, so we want to be training people in those areas and alerting the colleges and universities, hey, we know this is an area that should be addressed, and who else to train those people. So working with those different agencies together. And this next year is going to be another growth step. And just, I guess we have a mindset that this could be a 5 to 7 year project. So,
And Sharon almost said 10. We laughed.
Well,
right?
we did say that it could expand to that. These are things that are not fixed overnight, or that are not addressed overnight. And of course, there needs to be a lot of people at the table with the clout to make it happen. And Unicorn has been perfectly positioned, not being a provider of services, so they have been perfectly positioned to be neutral and just be
Switzerland.
Let's look at it, right? Let's look at it honestly, and what do we need to do? So there's no finger pointing. It's all about what needs to be done, and let's get together and do it.
Yeah, finally. And thank you, Unicorn, because it's something that's been needed for such a long time. Because like we said, there's so many nonprofits doing work. Some might be only being able to service one area or another. So coming together is just the key to success. And who are some of the other funders that are helping you create this informational hub and piece?
I'm so glad you asked that. So the funders. Again, this is by the community for the community. And it really, I don't think, would have had the legs that it has now had we not reached out. Quantum Foundation was our initial funder on this project. They're the ones who really said, we believe in it. Go ahead, leverage our name, get out and reach out to other organizations. Jewish Federation of South Palm Beach County was a significant contributor. Palm Beach County Board of Commissioners through the Palm Beach County Youth Services Department really stepped up to take on the bulk of the cost of the assessment. Ruth and Norman Rails Jewish Family Services, Autism After 21, Children's Services Council of Palm Beach County, Els for Autism, and the Autism Project of Palm Beach County, as well as United Way gave some in-kind contributions. So again, pulling together a series of funders. So for phase 2, we are hoping to do the same thing. And, we're talking about $600,000 to implement year 1, which includes convening these conversations and developing curriculums to increase the number of service providers in the community, to creating this virtual hub that, once it's built with the input from the community, we can really actually hand this over to 211 to maintain it, because we're not here to replicate services that already exist. We want to take the existing services and make them better.
Support them and get them more support. Well, yeah.
Exactly. So for phase 1, or for the year 1 of phase 2, it's $600,000 that we're looking to secure. After that, it's about $1.2 million a year. So right now, in my role at Unicorn Children's Foundation, I've been reaching out to other funders. Our board of directors has committed $100,000 to implementing phase 2. So we know at a minimum we're going to get this virtual hub done, and we're going to convene these conversations. But without the community support, I don't think we're going to be able to make progress as quickly in reshaping and transforming the system. But there are several funders that are out there who are very interested in recognize the need to help our special needs community that we'll be reaching out to. By the end of the year, we hope to have a multi-funder, multi-year funding alliance where we have the different agencies who are pooling their resources together, that we have a real strategic direction on the steps going forward, rather than funding a project here or there and putting Band-Aids on the issue.
We were lucky to have the recommendations from the experts, but needless to say, there will be a lot of adjustments along the way as we grow. You have a 5-year plan, but definitely there might be some every year reassessing where we've come from, where we're going, et cetera. But when Sharon mentioned the county commissioners, when you see county commissioners coming to a meeting, which we did see quite almost every monthly meeting.
Yes, Commissioner Paulette Burdick was actively engaged in the process.
Absolutely. And when she couldn't be there, sent someone in her place. That kind of support spoke volumes to the other people in the room because, it carries a lot of weight to have the county behind us. So I just think that when you see the list, which is huge, of everyone who's been to those meetings, there's just such hope for the future. And that's, what we want to grow and continue to bring other people into the process.
They say timing is everything. And I'm wondering, as we're talking, perhaps this is the right time. Maybe this is the time that we're able to position ourselves for the community to listen and to get this going. And I think Unicorn must have seen that this is the right time, the right place.
Well, I think you're seeing right now the first cohort of individuals with special needs who had access to early identification and early intervention who are now aging out and becoming adults. And so we can no longer keep our eyes closed and say, well, it's their problem and just keep them, let them sit on the couch and watch TV all day. We need to provide the right system and the right structure for these individuals and these families to have the supports they need so that they are out in the community and contributing and engaged.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm very grateful, and the community is. I wish you the best in phase 2,
Absolutely.
3, 4, in the next 10 years.
Yes.
Moving forward. And all of us, thank you for this tireless, hard work that you're doing of putting all of these wonderful committee people, organizations together to create this program. So thank you again, Unicorn.
Thank you very much for
Sharon
having us.
And Ann.
You've been listening to the Forum for Nonprofits, presented as a public service of the Beasley Broadcast Group, hosted by a representative of the Spirit of Giving Network. To volunteer for the Spirit of Giving Network, call 561-385-0144. And tune in again next week for the Forum for Nonprofits. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.